Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma.
5,000 years ago in India, many saints and sages gathered on the banks of the sacred river Ganges. They came from throughout the world to witness the last 7 days in the life of the great devotee, King Parikshit. The king had renounced his fabulous wealth to dedicate his few remaining days to spiritual enlightenment. At that meeting, Sukadeva Goswami, the most exalted sage in the assembly, narrated the pastimes and teachings of Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He discussed all aspects of knowledge, from the creation of the material universe to the culture of spiritual life, and held the king and sages in rapt attention. Through the ages, these teachings about Lord Sri Krishna were transmitted intact from spiritual master to disciple. Shripad Madhvacharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Goswamis of Vrindavan, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Sri Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, and in the early 20th century, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who ordered his disciples to preach Krishna consciousness around the world. He especially desired to distribute Krishna conscious literature in the Western countries. His disciple, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, took this order as his very life.
In 1944, he single-handedly begins publishing and distributing Back to Godhead, a fortnightly. The first issue addresses the crisis of war. The Second World War within 20 years is scourging the earth. Back to Godhead points out that people throughout the world want an end to war. But so often they want God's kingdom without God, and they cannot have it. All our plans will be doomed to failure by our own selfishness unless we turn to God. Following tradition, at age 58, a boy Charan retires from family life, and 5 years later accepts the renounced order. He is now known as A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He lives alone in the historic medieval temple of Radha Damodar in Vrindavan, engaged in deep studies and writing. Unlike other holy men who live there, Bhaktivedanta Swami is not thinking of retiring. For him, Vrindavan is a source of inspiration, an ideal place to chant, worship, and write. Here he begins work on his life's masterpiece, translation and commentary on the monumental devotional classic Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhaktivedanta Swami calls it a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. But often he leaves Vrindavan to print his magazine and books in nearby Delhi. Traveling takes time and tolerance, but Bhaktivedanta Swami accepts it as part of his spiritual mission to broadcast devotional service to Lord Krishna. In Delhi, Bhaktivedanta Swami personally distributes copies of Back to Godhead, and with small donations, struggles to maintain the publication. He regularly sees Surendra Kumar Jain, a printer.
It was somewhere in the month of February 1956 that I first met Prabhupada. He came to my press for getting the magazine printed, Back to Godhead. I found that it was not very easy for him to collect money. He would come to the press practically every day, and after the printing was done, he would do everything himself. But he was a dedicated person, a very committed person. And at the times when he was not in a position to pay the bills, I would ask him, "Why are you running this? Why don't you stop it?" He would say, "No, it is my mission. And one day, Surendra Kumar, you will see that I will succeed in my mission."
By 1964, Bhaktivedanta Swami completes 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri lauds his accomplishment and recommends his books for placement in India's public libraries.
Festival takes place
Wherever Srila Prabhupada is, he continues to write prolifically. Rising long before dawn, he spends hours translating and commenting on original Sanskrit and Bengali texts.
Or sometimes they wash their hands and feet before entering the temple.
His most significant contribution is his books. Professors from dozens of major universities use them as standard texts and write appreciative reviews.
The narrations concerning the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, are the oldest writings known to man. Over generations, they have influenced civilizations in both the East and the West. Now, under Srila Prabhupada's guidance, the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust has become the world's largest publisher and distributor of these spiritual classics. Srila Prabhupada himself is the author of all of the books. He has been acclaimed as the world's most distinguished scholar and teacher of Vedic philosophy and culture. While translating each Sanskrit verse, he refers to books of commentary by previous spiritual masters and then gives a thorough explanation of the text.
Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives in this connection a description of a difference of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and ordinary living being. So this is difference of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and ordinary living being. This has been described in the previous verse, Sadbang Pumana Vida Gunang Sutadgyan Naveda Sadbhagya Manantamire. The purport is that Supreme Lord, He is omnipotent, omniscient, He knows everything, but the living being does not know actually what is the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and ordinary living being.
He also did a very important work in introducing to the Western world for the first time the devotional philosophy of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Not only did he introduce these texts, but he introduced them in a way that was quite different from the other translations that had been made. I had read so many different translations, for example, of the Bhagavad Gita, which had all been interpreted from the impersonalist type of philosophy of the Advaita school. And here, you might say, for the first time was a truly devotional translation, a spiritual translation of the text, which I felt really came much closer to the true meaning and the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita.
Established in 1972, the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust exclusively publishes Srila Prabhupada's works. It becomes the world's largest distributor of books in the field of Indian religion and philosophy. For Srila Prabhupada, the transcendental knowledge in these books forms the basis of the Hare Krishna movement. Then in October, Srila Prabhupada returns to his old home, Vrindavan, to spend his final days. Even though he is physically incapacitated, Srila Prabhupada's intellect remains clear. He continues dictating translations and comments on his life's work, Srimad Bhagavatam, until days before he departs from this world.
Everything is active, moving by the supreme desire of Krishna. This consciousness is Krishna consciousness.
So we have to simply take instruction from Guru, and if we execute that to our heart and soul, that is success. That is practical. I have no personal qualification, but I simply try to satisfy my Guru. That's all. My Guru Maharaj asked me that if you get some money, you print books. So, there was a private meeting talking. Some of my important God brothers also there. It was in Radha Kunda. So, Guru Maharaj was speaking to me that since we have got this Bhagavajar and marble temple, there has been so many dissensions. And everyone is thinking, we'll occupy this room or that room, that room. I wish therefore to sell this temple and the marble and print some book. Yes. So I took up this from his mouth, that he is very fond of books. And he told me personally that if you get some money, print books. Therefore I am stressing on this point. Where is book? Where is book? Where is book? So kindly help me. This is my request. Print as many books in as many languages and distribute throughout the whole world. Then Krishna Consciousness movement will automatically increase.